Today is March 11th. It is Women's History Month. Listen, isn't it Women's History Month every month? Isn't it Black History Month every month? But we say we're going to celebrate it in March, and that's what we're going to do. So I have a very, very special guest with us today, Dr. Saundra McGuire. And in addition to that, we're going to talk about who Dr. Saundra McGuire is in a little bit. But for now, what I want to share with you about Dr. Saundra McGuire before we go into her books and education is who she is in the world. She is someone who really is a stand for students excelling in the sciences. She is someone who is a stand for instilling confidence, especially with our Black and brown students, but all students. In addition to that, she's a philanthropist. And here today, as a recipient of her grant award, I want to introduce to you a very special new arts collective, JAM. I'm going to be playing for you a little short that they did, and then we're going to hear from them a little bit afterwards, just before we introduce Dr. Saundra McGuire.
We do this for the love. 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 We do this for the love.
We are here for justice. We are here for the truth. We are here for the future of our youth. We are here for justice. We are here for the truth. We are here for the future of our youth.
We do this for the love, for our people. We do this for the love, for our children. We do this for the love. 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 Ba-da-da, ba-da, ba-da, ba-bo. Ba-da-da, ba-da, ba-da, bow. Ba-da-da, ba-da, ba-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
So we gotta keep moving. We gotta keep grooving.
We gotta keep singing till our freedom comes. We gotta keep fighting.
We gotta keep trying.
We gotta keep flying till we reach the sun. We are here to name our power. We are here to claim our power. Because if we don't do it, they will devour us alive with the lies they spread, the poison we're fed, the fear and the dread. We've been taught since birth to question our worth, but we say no more. We take back our power here and now. So we gotta keep moving.
We gotta keep grooving.
We gotta keep singing till our freedom comes. We gotta keep fighting.
We gotta keep trying.
We gotta keep flying till we reach the sun. We gotta keep moving.
We gotta keep grooving.
We gotta keep singing till our freedom comes. Yeah, we gotta keep fighting.
We gotta keep trying.
We gotta keep flying till we reach the sun. We do this for the love.
Justice.
We do this for the love.
Truth.
We do this for the love. Yeah.
Our youth.
We do this for the love till our freedom comes. We do this for the love till we reach the sun. We do this for the love. We do this for the love. We do this for the love. do this for the love. We do this for the love. We do this for the love.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. That was Jam, everyone. That's Alexis Roberts, Jamila Saberas Clem in Jam. Very quickly, Alexis and Jamila, just thank you for that. How can your audience reach you? I see, and your microphones are off, but it
Yes,
is.
yes.
Yep.
Hi, hi.
Hi.
Yes, right under, actually, Alexis has it. It's at We Are Jam on Instagram. And we also have a website called We Are Jam, the double M, .squarespace.com. And so you can check us out there.
Awesome. And
And
you're going to
we
want
have all our information there. Yeah.
you're going to want to book these folks quick, okay? Because they're going to get pretty solid pretty quickly. So if you're an institution, you're a college, and you want to book Jam, please go to their website, all right? I'm about to introduce Dr. Saundra McGuire. Dr. Saundra Yancy McGuire, I'm actually going to introduce her now. Dr. Saundra Yancy McGuire is an internationally acclaimed learning specialist who has been teaching students strategies for improving their learning for over 50 years. She is the mom of two daughters, the younger of whom is her co-author of the book. She is the retired director of the Center for Academic Success and retired assistant vice chancellor and professor of chemistry at Louisiana State University. She has delivered keynote addresses or presented workshops on effective learning strategies at over 500 institutions in 47 states and 13 countries. Prior to joining LSU, she spent 11 years at Cornell University, where she received the coveted Clark Distinguished Teaching Award. Her best-selling books, Teach Students How to Learn and Teach Yourself How to Learn, are widely praised by faculty and students alike. The Parent's Guide to Studying and Learning is the third book in the series that is devoted to teaching effective learning strategies. McGuire's most recent accolades include being named in the 2022 Louisiana Legend by Louisiana Public Broadcasting, being listed in the 2020 edition of Marquis Who's Who in America, receiving the 2019 Commitment to Excellence in Academic Support Award from the Commission for Academic Support in Higher Education, an induction in 2017 into the LSU College of Science Hall of Distinction. She is an elected fellow of the American Chemical Society, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the Council of Learning Assistance and Development Education Associations. She received the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science, Mathematics, and Engineering, mentoring in a White House Oval Office ceremony. Dr. McGuire received her BS degree magna cum laude from Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Her master's degree from Cornell University and her PhD from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, where she received the Chancellor's Citation for Exceptional Professional Promise. Dr. Saundra McGuire is married to Dr. Stephen C. McGuire, the James and Ruth Smith Professor of Physics Emeritus at Southern University. They are the parents of Dr. Carla McGuire Davis and Dr. Stephanie McGuire, and the doting grandparents of Joshua, Ruth, Daniel, and Joseph Davis. Welcome, Dr. Saundra McGuire.
Thank you so much. Let me first say thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on the show. And usually I think that introduction is too long, but I'm glad that I had enough time to wipe away my tears. This is the first time you've made me cry before I have to talk, but it was just beautiful. I was so honored to see the piece that Alexis and Jamila had put together. And I think it's a perfect segue into what I do, because I do this for the love. And it's all about education. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. I think maybe you have some questions for me, and then we'll just kind of jump right into it. But thank you again so much for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome, and thank you. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. Jamila, Alexis, both Jamila and Alexis are youth educators, and Alexis is actually in the middle of youth educating today, and she stepped in to join us. But do you have any questions for Dr. McGuire?
Yes. So one of my questions is your learning strategies work reaching populations of women and underserved communities? And if so, how can teachers everywhere support this goal?
That's a great question. Yes. And I'm going to say, yes, it definitely is. But it's reaching those populations through my presentations at historically Black colleges and universities. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at elementary, middle school, high schools that are predominantly composed of minoritized students. And I think the best way to get an introduction to the work is through the books. They're both available on Amazon. But the one that I've done it was actually written for college faculty, but a lot of high school, middle school, even kindergarten teachers say that it's very helpful. And it's teach students how to learn. And then we wrote one for students, teach yourself how to learn. And then the newest one that just came out, because parents really could benefit from the information, is the Parent's Guide to Studying and Learning. But I'm really interested. And in fact, my work started with minoritized students when I was a graduate student at Cornell University. And I started holding sessions for students there at the Africana Studies Center. And I had a group of about 30 Black students who we'd meet weekly. And they would learn and better understand chemistry, learn strategies for learning chemistry. And a lot of those students now are doctors, professors, educators. And so, and the reason I'm so passionate about this is my grandmother, Effie Jane Gordon Yancey, who was the daughter of a freed slave in Greensburg, Louisiana, really started the legacy of education in our family. She had 9 kids. My dad was the oldest male. And her vision was that they would all graduate from college. They all did. They all went to college. 7 of them graduated, went to graduate school at places like Iowa State, Kansas State, Michigan, UCLA, because LSU was not integrated at the time. And Louisiana chose to pay other states to educate at the graduate level Black students. So I have this legacy of education in my family. And I do know that education is a very, very powerful tool. And so I do this for the love. So I love your piece.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for that question. Jamila, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So I did a little research when I heard, we were going to be speaking with you. And my mom is a pre-K teacher in Baltimore City, but my background is actually in musical theater, music, dance. And so it was interesting to learn about Bloom's taxonomy. And it was so interesting to see that at the top of the pyramid is create. But one of the first things that get cut from educational programming usually is the arts. And I think in 2020, Bill de Blasio slashed like 70% in middle and high schools. And so, and I think that the arts is to teach how to create, right? And so my question is, why do you think that is? And also, how can we mostly as our JAM, Justice Through Art, Music and Movement, how can we be a part of combating that and supporting public funding and public programming in the public school systems in the arts?
Yes, that's a really great question. And I actually have to admit that I come from a background where almost everybody in our family did math, science, psychology. And I was not very much into the arts. I was I don't think I was very creative, but our younger daughter, the one who's the co-author on the books, she's an opera singer now. She has a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Oxford after getting her bachelor's in biology at MIT. But I'm not supposed to say but, I should say and, she's an opera singer today. And so I was really very late coming to the party, recognizing the importance that the arts play in really making us human and helping us develop creativity. And I think it's really tragic that the arts are taken out of the curriculum because, and I've thought about this a bit, I think the arts for kids, I mean, that's where the fun is. That's where they can be creative. That's what the joy in school is. And so I think when we move to this model where we're going to take out all of the arts, we're going to just focus on science and English and language arts, I think it really negatively impacts our kids. And they don't have that joy that they could associate with school if they had the whole, if they had the arts and everything. And so that's why now we talked a lot about STEM before, science, technology, engineering, and math. But over the last few years, that's converted to STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, because I think more people are recognizing how crucial the arts are to developing the whole person. And so I think that the best way to make sure that we get this back into the curriculum and help people understand this is to point out that the arts are just so crucial in helping us relate to each other as people, helping develop creativity. And I actually have seen more places really embrace the idea that we can't leave out the arts, that we can talk about STEM, but arts are such a vital part. And I'm trying to do my part to really advocate for the arts. Stephanie's done a lot of musical theater, and now I see the light now, where I do not. And your piece was just so beautiful.
Thank you.
And speaking of that, I just want to take another opportunity to say thank you so much, Jam, for being with us today, for opening for Dr. Saundra McGuire, for asking all your questions. I know some of you may have to leave early. You're certainly welcome to stay with us. Again, that's Jam Collective. You want to reach out to them and book them. They're going to get booked rather quickly. Dr. McGuire, I have a question for you, and then we'll take questions from the outside audience. And I know there's some slides that you want to show. How important is self-confidence in learning and education?
It is huge. And I didn't really appreciate this until the wonderful learning strategist, Sarah Baird, who I talk about in the book. I'll never forget one time she told me, this was before I knew what I'm doing now. I've only learned this within the past 20 years or so. And I've been teaching for 30 years before I understood the power of metacognition and equity and helping students recognize that they can control their thought process. And one day Sarah said, she said, Saundra, confidence is huge. And I hadn't really appreciated that. But in the intervening years, I've been noticing, you know, whenever they interview these sports figures after a big game, you will always hear them say confident. They'll say, oh, we went in very confident today. We were confident that our quarterback, we were confident. And so you hear this word confidence all the time. And I'm going to talk a little bit about mindset when I share the slides. And and I guess the quote that comes to mind, Henry Ford said, if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you're right. And I think what that's portraying is that if you are confident that you can do something, you're going to do everything you possibly can to accomplish it. And so you're going to accomplish it. But if you're not confident that you're going to be able to do it, then you're not going to put forth every effort because your mind has already told you that you're not going to really be able to do this. And so, of course, you're not going to be successful because you're not going to be putting forth the effort. And when I talk to faculty all the time, I say that we have to express confidence that every student can excel. And once I was questioned on that, and the person said, well, you know, what if not everybody can excel? And this was a college audience. And I'm thinking, well, why would we admit anybody to our institutions if we didn't think they could excel? But I think he was misinterpreting that as my saying, I want to make sure that I express my confidence that every student will succeed. Well, I know that not every student will succeed, but I don't know who's going to succeed and who's not at the beginning. So we've got to express confidence that every student can succeed, because very often it's only our confidence in the student that's going to be present before they develop their confidence in themselves. And yeah, so that makes such a difference. And I've seen so many students who were just, and they'll tell me, they say, well, Dr. McGuire, you know, I just don't think I can do this. I can't learn chemistry. I was like, of course you can. The only reason that you haven't been successful before is because you haven't had the strategies. And that's what I'm here to teach you. And I don't care if you made a 20 on the first test. I know you can make 90 or 100 on the next test, because it's not about how smart you are, because everybody's smart. It's about whether or not you have the strategies and are using the strategies that the successful students are doing. And I became so passionate because, and in fact, some of the things that I say in the book and I talk about now, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think I could take a student who'd made a 42 on the first test and then have them make hundreds on every single test after that, just by learning the strategies and developing confidence that this could happen. And so that's what I'm going to share a little bit about when I go quickly through the slides.
That's so fantastic. Thank you for that. And so
actually, I have to say one other thing to Alexis and Jamila. Yeah, I'm still not very good at the arts. And I remember growing up, you know, we hear a lot about math and science anxiety. And I say, I never had math or science anxiety, but I had art and PE anxiety big time. Just big time. And so anyone who can, you know, control their body and create the beautiful movements that you are teaching your students to do, my hat is off to you. Thank you so much. And I believe you could even teach me how to do some of that stuff. So
I sure can.
Great. So Dr. McGuire, if you'd like now to present your slides, or, you know, we would love to see
Sure.
them.
Okay, yes, and this is just to give the audience an idea of what the work that I do is all about. So if we could see the first slide, David, please. And it's interesting, David, if the slides don't come up, let me know. I don't know if anybody out there has heard the term techno-trauma drama, but I coined that term because it follows me around. And I know before we started, we saw the slides, we could move through them, but are you having a bit of technical difficulty?
No, they're there. It's right there.
Oh, I don't see them. Does anybody else?
Them, David. Yep. Please stand by. We are experiencing, I've always wanted to say this, folks. Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties.
Yeah.
You don't see the slide?
We do not. But in the process, while we're getting them up, I will just start to talk about what's in them. And so now, there it is.
Oh,
yeah. Oh.
This may be my screen. Is this my screen? Is that you, David, or me?
That's me.
Okay, good. Okay, great.
And I see the very first word has a mistake. Closed the metacognitive equity gap. It should be close the metacognitive equity gap. Oh, how embarrassing. But that just shows I'm human. And actually, I talk with students and I'll say, you know, expect mistakes. And when mistakes happen, then just own up to it. And so, of course, that should be close the metacognitive equity gap by teaching students how to learn. So the next slide, please, David. And so I talk about metacognition. And so we're going to describe that, and I'll explain what I mean by metacognitive equity. But first, I wanted to say that the information that I'm going to be sharing in the next few minutes is the teacher's book that I talked about, Teach Students How to Learn. In the next slide, the student version of that is Teach Yourself How to Learn. And next, David. And we wrote the student book because there were so many students reading the faculty book, Teach Students How to Learn, who said that they were getting so much from the strategy. So we decided that we wanted to have a book that was written to and for students instead of just a book that was for faculty about students. And then just last year, a publisher came to us, next slide, please, and said parents need to know this information. And so the resource for parents is the Parent's Guide to Studying and Learning. And so eventually, I think the slides are going to catch up to where I am, but I'll just keep talking because there's a slide, there's a pictorial representation of the difference between reality and equality and equity and then liberation. And basically, what's on that slide, if we get a chance to see it, is that in reality, there are certain people who have lots of advantages. There are certain people who have a lot less. And then there are certain people who have almost no advantages. And the person who has, okay, it's coming up. I don't know why the slides aren't showing. Okay. Yes. Okay, there it is. And so in reality, you can see, you can't even see the top of this person's head, but there's a fence here, and this person has all the resources. They can see over the fence. The second person can barely see over it, and the third person has no view at all. And equality means that we're going to give everybody the same resources. And of course, that doesn't work because some people need more resources than others. Now, equity means that we're going to give everybody the resource that they need so that they will be able to see past the barrier. But then liberation, of course, is if there's no barrier there to begin with. And so I use metacognition, next, David, as a tool for teaching students about the learning process. And simply put, metacognition is just your ability to think about your own thinking. It's as if you had a big brain outside your brain looking at what your brain is doing. And that big brain is asking your brain questions, and it's saying, did you just memorize this information, or do you really understand it? It's your ability to be consciously aware that you can solve problems that you might have thought you needed to ask someone else to solve for you. It's your ability to plan, monitor, and control your mental processing so you know if you're understanding something or if you're just memorizing information. And it's your ability to accurately judge your level of learning so that when you go into a test or a quiz that requires that you have analyzed information or that you're creating or evaluating, then you don't go in just having memorized a bunch of stuff. So you're not going to be able to perform at that level. And it's also your ability to really know what you know and what you don't know. Next slide, please, so that you don't show up in a situation thinking you're well prepared and you're not. Now, metacognitive equity is related to what we call educational equity. And that educational equity really is looking at this discrepancy in educational outcomes between different groups of students. If we're looking at high income versus low income students, or minoritized students versus non-minoritized students, students from low resource schools versus students from high resource schools, there's that difference. And I think the difference is due not at all to any lack of ability, but it's only due to the fact that many of the students who are not performing well have not been taught metacognition. They've not been able to develop their metacognitive skills. And so I coined the term metacognitive equity to talk about reducing the discrepancy in metacognition or in thinking strategies between those different groups of students. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. But one is that many times students from minoritized populations, they've never been in an environment where they've been required to develop those metacognitive skills. They're less likely to have mentors in their life who are demonstrating metacognitive skills to them and reinforcing their use of those skills. In fact, one of the things that really saddens me is many times when I see some parents, the different ways that parents react to kids. One group of parents, let's say a kid is in the store and they're saying, well, what is this? What does this look like? And then the parent says, oh, well, Johnny, this is this, and that's there because that. And then another parent, the kid says, oh, well, what is that? And the parent says, we don't have time to talk about that. Let's go. And so there's certain populations, there's certain behaviors that will develop the idea in kids that they can have their own thoughts, they can ask questions, they can develop their creativity. But if they're in an environment that stifles that, then they're not going to develop those skills. And so next slide, David, I'm just going to give you an example of a student. This was Dana Lewis Derby now. And she was a student in physics. I met her when she made a 54 on her second physics test. And she was about to drop out of physics as a major because she thought she couldn't do it. And I taught her the strategies that were in the book. She made a 91 on the next test, A's on every test after that. She had a straight A average that semester. And she stayed in physics and she graduated from LSU with honors in physics. And she's now a medical physicist. And so this information really gives students back their hopes and dreams even when they think that they are not going to be able to succeed. Next slide, David, please. And I had a little recording of Dana, but we'll keep going because next is, oh, if you think it'll play, David?
No, it's not going to.
No, it's not going to play. Okay, no, we can keep going. Yeah, and this is Bloom's taxonomy, which we just mentioned earlier. And that is this hierarchy of learning levels. It's a taxonomy that was developed, a classification of learning levels that was developed by a cognitive scientist, Benjamin Bloom, at the University of Chicago. And these are the different levels, going from just memorizing information verbatim. You don't really understand what it means. You've just memorized definitions and formulas, to understanding so that you can explain information in your own terms, to applying, where now you can use this information to solve problems you've never seen before, answer questions you've never seen before, to analyzing, where now you can take any concept, break it into simpler concepts, to evaluating. So now you can look at two ideas, two theories, two concepts, and determine whether one is likely to be more accurate than another, all the way up to creating. And I think that unless students are aware of this, and I teach students Bloom's taxonomy all the time, and the number one reaction I get is, wow, why didn't anybody tell me about this before? I wish I had known this in high school. Because if they've only memorized and they don't know there's anything other than memorization, then they can't move higher. And so the next slide, please. And I'm about to come to the end of the slides, and I'll take questions and comments. But mindset is so important. And this is so related to confidence. Mindset is the work of a cognitive psychologist, Carol Dweck, who is at Stanford. And what she and her colleagues discovered was that most people have one of two views about intelligence. They either think you're born with a certain amount of it, that's not going to change very much over your lifetime. She calls that a fixed mindset. Or the other view is that you can grow your intelligence with your actions. You can make yourself smarter. And she calls that a growth mindset. And so she wrote the book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. And then David Shank wrote a book, The Genius in All of Us, Why Everything You've Been Told About Genetics, Talent, and IQ is Just Wrong. And he uses a lot of Dweck's work in his book. And next slide, please. And this is just the definition of the two mindsets. You can't grow it. It's fixed, and you can, it's growth. And so in the next slide, we'll see that why it's so important, because your responses to a lot of things are based on your mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, thinking that my intelligence was set when I was born, can't get any smarter, then when you have challenges, then you tend to avoid that, because you're thinking, well, I'm probably not going to be successful if it's a challenge. And you're much more concerned with showing people how smart you are, not realizing you can get smarter. So folks with a fixed mindset avoid challenges. They give up very easily when they get to obstacles. They think effort is fruitless, because either they're smart enough to do it without trying, or they're not smart enough to do it at all. So why try? They ignore constructive criticism, and they are threatened by the success of others. Whereas people with a growth mindset embrace challenges. They persist through obstacles. They know that effort is the path to mastery. They learn from constructive criticism, and they're inspired when others succeed. And so the next slide, we're almost finished with the slides. And this is just to give you the impact of this growth mindset. There was a chemistry student who emailed me because he knew I taught chemistry, and he told me that he was not good at chemistry, and his grades were reflecting that. And he wanted me to tutor him. He said, I can pay you if you want me to. I did not spend 1 nanosecond tutoring this guy in chemistry. I gave him the strategies, and we talked about mindset and the things that he could do just in one session. And after, you see the scores that he made in red. Before we met, he had a 68 and 250s. Afterwards, he had 87, 87, 97 on the final. And I now ask students to send me an email and tell me what they did differently. He ended up making a 90 in the course. He started with a D. And so he said he started making side notes in each chapter. He didn't even have the textbook before we talked, but he got the textbook, making side notes in each chapter. And he discovered that in chemistry, everything builds from the previous topic. And this is so often what our students don't get when they're just memorizing and not using the textbook. And I think looking at one of the things, the high stakes test, and I'm still, that really grieves my spirit. I can't say too strongly how I think that's just so horrible what we do to kids with those high stakes testing. And so many of our students don't do well on the test, not because they couldn't, but nobody's taught them the strategies. And so if all they've done is kind of memorized information, but when they get to that test, they're now required to operate at the application level, at the analysis level, but nobody's ever taught them that. And so they don't do well. And it has just spiraling negative consequences. And so I am on a quest. I tell people I'm kind of like a reformed alcoholic. I have the answer. And it's not that difficult to teach students these strategies. And so the books teach students how to learn for teachers, teach yourself how to learn for students. And then the Parent's Guide to Studying and Learning is, I think I'm trying to live out my grandmother's dream that everyone will have an opportunity to achieve and excel academically, because I know everybody has that potential, but we've got to teach them the strategies to do that.
Well, I can imagine after this show, there'll be many students that's like, how do I reach you? Where do I call you? What do I do? Where do I go?
Yes.
What do we tell them?
Okay, that is, I see someone on the line who's a native of Greensburg, Louisiana.
Hello,
Wow.
Greensburg. Hello, Greensburg. That's Catherine Taylor. All right.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because Greensburg, as Catherine will know, the educational system there has kind of deteriorated. And I just wish all of the Black students in that system, because it's primarily a Black system, would know about the rich legacy that exists in Greensburg. And in fact, I'll say this really quickly. But my grandmother, when she had that notion that all of her kids would go to college, that was very rare, because almost nobody was going to college back then. So I'm third generation college, because she had a couple of years of college herself. And she felt so strongly about it. She actually, I'm told that she would have white kids and Black kids on her porch, and she would be reading to them. She taught in a one-room school. So I like to say that she actually had the first integrated academic setting anywhere in Louisiana, because I actually integrated Glen Oaks High School. It didn't come to formally to Louisiana until the mid to late 60s. But yes, so thanks so much, Greensburg. And I was so excited to see Greensburg. I forgot, what question was I answering? What was I talking about?
I was saying, after this event, I can imagine all the students and professors are going to be like, what do I do? Who do I call?
Yes, yeah.
Please.
Okay, yeah. And so the reason that I wrote the books was when I started talking about this, there were so many faculty that would say, I need you to talk to my students. And so, of course, that's not sustainable. To date, I've talked, as you said, over 500 institutions, and now it's 48 states and 14 countries. And so it's really impossible for me to say, but I will give you my email address. But I couldn't respond to all of the inquiries that I get. So what I like to do is I ask people to contact my host if you have questions that we haven't discussed. But actually, I really encourage people to read the book first, because I do get emails from folks with questions that are answered in the book. And the only reason I don't like to just answer questions without having someone having read the book is because all of the background information is there. And if I just answer the question, you're not going to get the full picture. And so, but I am more than happy to talk with as many people as I can. But I just do so much of the speaking, and my time is really tied up with that. But I can give you my email address. It's S as in Sam, it's SMCGUI and the number 1 at LSU, as in Louisiana State University.edu. But again, I really encourage you to read the book. Stephanie, our younger daughter, is my co-author on the books. And everybody says it's fun to read because she made it fun to read. I would have had the information in it, but it wouldn't have been as much fun had Stephanie not actually been responsible for most of the text that's in the book.
Wow, it's so fantastic. So, folks, you've seen JAM. You've heard Dr. Saundra Yancy McGuire speak today. I hope you've gotten a lot out of today, because I know I sure got a lot out of today. And if you need to reach Dr. McGuire, she just gave her email address. You can also reach us here at Placenza and we'll get the message to her. She's just one person. So, 1,000 people email her in one day. She's not likely to get back to you within the hour, if you know what I mean. So feel free to email us also at Placenza. That's sometimes I say it and it sounds like placenta, but I don't mean placenta. I actually mean presenza. Face to face. David, if you have Placenta's email, if you could post it on the screen, that would be great. So if anyone has
And let me just ask Catherine Taylor, if you would please email me. I would love to talk with you about Greensburg.
All right. Catherine Taylor, you have been called out. I want to thank you all for coming out today. Again, you can get, Dr. McGuire, will you please mention the names of your books and where they're available once again?
Okay, yes. It's Teach Students How to Learn for instructors. Teach Yourself How to Learn for students really as young as middle school, if they're a mature middle schooler. And then The Parent's Guide to Studying and Learning. And they're all on Amazon. And yes, and through Stylus, our publisher. And let me just say one other thing, Alexis and Jamila, again, thank you so much. That was just so, and it was just wonderful. And I'm so happy to have been able to contribute just a small amount to what the wonderful work that you ladies are doing.
We want to thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And thank you all out there for watching face to face with us today. It's Dr. Saundra Yancy McGuire. In addition to that, there was an opening by Jam. That's Alexis Roberts and Jamila Sabares Clem. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David Anderson, for having me host today's show. Thanks for coming on. Tune in. There'll be a show on March 17th with Ibrahim Ali's his book on the Black Celts. That's what we're doing for St. Patty's Day, folks. We're going to be learning about the Black Celts. Have a great time. I'll see you next time around.
Well, thank you, David. And yes, and Gabby. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.